Institute, and I'm going to talk to you today just a few tips for early stage investigator folks. Right before I have a panel of a couple of our colleagues come up, and we're here to answer any questions you might have. But I just wanted to give a little primer about the Institute and some things to keep in mind. So I just want to get an idea of who's in the room. Established investigators, folks who already have an R01. Yeah, all right. Early stage folks, so no R01, but okay.
Want to get one R01.
Would like an R01. Postdocs, grad students, anyone who went to the parks while they were here, the theme parks. No one? You guys are doing this wrong.
I did.
So just a brief primer on the general grant cycle that we have. So it starts, of course, with you as the principal investigator, and there's going to be certain points through the whole cycle in which you want to reach out to personnel at the NIH to get input and help. So it starts first with your clever idea that you come up with as an investigator, or something you're responding to that the Institute has put out as a call for applications. And there you want to reach out to your program officers. And the program officers at NIH are individuals that make those programs that you're, those funding opportunities that you are interested in, or are your point of contact for scientific and administrative things through the NIH. Once your application has been submitted, it's going to go through the review process, and our scientific review officers are the individuals that put together the study section and are involved there. And then again, after that, and you've got your results of the review, you want to reach out to your program officers after that again, as well as once you have the award, there are going to be annual progress reports and your program officers who you're going to be interacting there. On the money side, and as far as your notice of awards and budgets, etc., our grants management officers are the individuals you'll be interacting with then, and mostly actually your institute will be interacting with them. So this is going to be focused on early stage investigators, and so the NIH, we've got a definition for everything. So an early stage investigator, or an ESI, is an investigator, researcher who is 10 years away from their terminal degree, so usually PhD or MD, and has a substantial competing award. So generally that's your R01s or these large project grants or centers or cooperative agreements, but it's not things like your K awards or your R21 smaller awards. So why do we care? So there's been this trend over time in which early stage or established investigators, that's the purple line, have submitted a lot more applications. Those applications have grown over time, while as new investigators and early stage folks have stayed flat, and the same is true for awards. And so this is troubling for our pipeline. We need fresh blood and new people coming into this pipeline. And so there's a more emphasis now on supporting early stage investigators. So who cares? You've got this definition, what good is it to you? So it does come with a certain amount of benefits to it, and it differs across the number of institutes. But for the most part, importantly, the pay lines are more generous for early stage folks. So it will vary across institute, but for example, say an institute paid line is 20 percentile. If you're an early stage investigator, it may be 25 percentile. Again, it depends on the institutes. And in review, we're going to instruct the reviewers, the peer reviewers, to focus more on the approach for early stage investigators and less on the track record, because the track record isn't there if you're early stage, right? So NIH has 27 institutes and centers, and each one has different programs focused on early stage folks. So here's one example from the National Cancer Institute, in which they have a merit award that's specific for early stage folks. And if you score within the pay line, so not the extended pay line for early stage folks, you have the opportunity to have your grant get an additional 2 years of support at the end of the 5 years, so that you have less time grant writing and more time doing work. And this is one example, but each institute will have different examples similar to this. So great, there's more potential funding there for early stage folks. However, how are you going to take advantage of this? What are the additional barriers? What are the things you need to know to navigate the NIH ecosystem of funding? So there's a lot of different mechanisms, and it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the various mechanisms across the board. We're all familiar with the gold standard, which is the R01, but there's also K awards, the K01, K99, which are designed to transition from postdoc into independent labs. And then also there are these very special directors awards, which are for exceptional postdocs to help transition to positions as well. So if you go to the NIH website and look under training and research training, you can filter it by whatever stage you are in the early stage. So as an early stage investigator, here's a number, just a screenshot of a number of things that are available from K awards and those early independence awards, those directors awards, and whether or not they're currently taking applications. So to highlight again some of the directors awards, 2 of them are directed directly at early stage investigators. They're very prestigious awards. They're very hard to get. It's your most clever, high risk, high reward ideas, and for highly exceptional creative scientists. And we can tell you more details about that if you'd like later. So you've got your idea where you're going to look for funding. Start off with grants.gov. So grants.gov is great because it searches across all of the institutes, all the agencies of the federal government. So for instance, in this example here, I've typed in the word microbiome, and you got examples from USDA, Department of Defense, NSF, and NIH. If you're really into searching for grants and you want to do it from your phone, there's a mobile app for that. One thing I would advise everyone to do is, if you go to grants.nih.gov, you can subscribe to the listserv so that you're not checking this every month. You get an email, here's the current opportunities that are available. You're really into social media, federal government is finally caught up with technology. We're on social media too, all of the social media you might like. I would suggest following, if you're on Twitter, there are funding-specific opportunities or Twitter handles. Here's one for NIH funding, another one for NIH grants, and there are institute-specific ones as well, like NIAID's funding. So there are other really important resources to use. So your university probably has a sponsored research office, and you're probably underutilizing them. Their webpage will have a lot of opportunities, internal and external. If you don't have a sponsored research office, likelihood your university subscribes to one of these data aggregation websites, which are search engines specific towards funding opportunities like Pivot or Grant Forward. And then don't forget about the nonprofit realm for funding opportunities and other government agencies as well. So what's next? You've got your great idea, you found what you needed on grants.gov. The next thing you should probably do is contact your program officer. Why? So if it's an idea that you came up with, you want to know which institute this may fit in, and does this fit into the current mission of the institute? Your program officer is a good person to talk to about that, or whether the science is a good fit. If it's a funding opportunity you found, then you want to, before you even write your grant, you want to speak to somebody to find out whether or not it fits into that specific funding opportunity, rather than wasting time writing a grant that's never going to be accepted into that particular funding opportunity. And to get feedback on your ideas, and it's their job. So who are POs? So there's this idea that a program officer is just a bureaucrat because we're in the government and we've got a yes stamp and a no stamp as to whether you get awards. That's not quite it. Program officers are just like you. So we all have PhDs or MDs, we've all done research, we've taken a different track. Many, many program officers were former PIs that have moved now into the government. So we understand exactly what you're going through. So how are you going to find these program officers? If you go to Reporter at nih.gov, there's a section called Matchmaker. And if you stick in your abstract or your key terms or your specific aims, it uses natural language processing to figure out where your work fits within the institute. And so you can get a readout of which institutes fund the majority of your work, what kind of mechanisms tend to be funded by your work, and then importantly, you get a list of the program officers that look at the kind of work you're doing, and you can email them from there. So also, within Matchmaker, you can find study sections that your work may fit into. So if you, right, and you can also find other grants that have been funded that are similar to yours, and find potential competitors or potential collaborators here as well. So when do you want to contact your program officer? When you've got that good idea, right? Or when you find a funding opportunity that fits. And you want to do that before you start to write the proposal so that you can make sure it fits and you don't waste time. Matchmaker's tool is one easy way to do it. Find them, email them your specific aim so they have something to talk about and have an understanding of where you're coming from. Set up a time to call. If you're looking at a funding opportunity that you found on grants.gov, all the way at the bottom of that, there's a list that shows you who the program officer is in charge of the program and your scientific review officer. Use that to contact them. But there are times when you shouldn't contact your program officer. If you're having trouble with grants.gov or ERA Commons, we're not the people to call for that. There's a help desk there. Once your application has been submitted for review, then the program officer is out of it, and it's the scientific review officer who you want to contact at that point. And once you've gotten your award, congratulations, talk to the money folks, which is the grants management officers. So you've got your idea, you submitted your grant, and now it's in review. Has anyone served on a review panel in the room before, NIH or otherwise? Great, thank you very much. It's appreciated, it's an important role. And any established investigators who's worth their worth will tell you that review is where you really learn to write grants. So if you get the opportunity to review grants, take it. It's really, really important, and it's how you learn how to write a really great grant. So how do you go about doing that? So scientific review officers are how you do it. So find study sections that work for you, find the grants, the scientific review officer, and email them your CV and let them know, here's my specialty and my interest, and I would like to be a review officer. And also, we have a program called the Early Career Reviewer Program. Is anyone in the room familiar with that? Have you heard about this before? Great. I would strongly advise everyone, if you qualify, there are certain qualifying roles for it, to sign up for it. It's a really great opportunity for early stage folks to learn to sit in on one review session, a standing study section. So if you are submitting your own idea that's not from a specific funding opportunity, you have to sometimes choose where it's going to go for study section, and that can sometimes be confusing. So one of the tools we have is called the assisted referral tool. So again, you take your abstract or your specific aims, you paste it in there, natural language processing will spit out a list of study sections that your grant may fit in more appropriately. And then you can see the roster of these study sections as well. You'll see who is the scientific review officer that runs that meeting. You can see the people that are there, and so you can make your choice this way, as well as contact that scientific review officer to find out whether to do it. So again, whenever your application is in review, scientific review officer is who you want to contact and to volunteer to review. So just a few last minute tips. You want to submit your proposal early, right? You do not submit your proposal to the NIH. You submit it to your institution, and your institution submits it. So they're going to have an earlier deadlines than what's on the funding opportunities, because they have to do a lot of additional work. Understanding the mechanisms, there's a lot more out there than the R mechanisms to take advantage of. read those funding opportunities carefully and all the way to the bottom. I know it looks like just a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo garbage at the bottom, but it's actually really, really important in there, particularly the review criteria. This is the criteria that reviewers are going to be told to judge your proposal by. So if you don't have those things in your proposal, you're starting off at a disadvantage. For early folks, your mentoring team matters. So put together not just a mentoring individual, but a team of individuals who are actually going to spend the time to read your proposals, not the guy that just says, looks great, and that's the end of it, but actually read the proposals and give you good feedback. Promote your work. So maintain a lab webpage, Twitter account, LinkedIn, to whatever level you feel is important. But if we can't find you and we don't know you're out there, it makes it harder for you. And doing things like this, coming to these meetings and networking. There are a number of things outside of the federal government. A number of institutes like ASCMB has FRED and ACT, which are mentoring and training programs, as well as Keystone Fellows and Next Professor or Next Prof from MSU. And seek out program officers. We're all over this meeting. If you find one of us, stop us, ask us about opportunities. And there are what's emerging now are supportive groups that are specific towards early stage folks, like New PI Slack is a really cool one. ECR Central is something put together really, really recently by HHMI. And then share this information with other early stage folks as well. So now I'm going to invite up two of my colleagues, also from the NIH, and they'll introduce themselves, and we're here to answer whatever questions you may have. Also, if you want this presentation, email me afterwards. I also have a version of this if you would like in a 3-page PDF. So reach out.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Merrick-Bilken. I'm a program officer at the National Institute of Diabetes, Digestive and Kidney Diseases. And my colleague here.
I'm Sanya Tigno. I'm a program director at the National Heart, Lung, Blood Institute, and